Chapter 4907. You know that I don't just want to kill the Northern Flame Emperor. Feng Jiu refilled his teacup and poured some tea for himself before asking, "What happened to you, Where is she now?" Emperor Qing sipped his tea unhurriedly. After putting down the teacup, he said, "That girl's temperament is unstable. Even though her two brothers are here, she still misses you and wants to see you. However, I ordered them not to go down the mountain to see you. They can only cultivate in the mountain. That girl couldn't stay there any longer and sneaked away." He poured another cup of tea and said slowly, "As for where she is now, you don't have to worry about that. Even if my disciple is outside, she won't encounter any danger. However, I don't think she will be able to go to your place in the short term." "Are you sure that she will be fine alone outside?" Feng Jiu frowned. It was impossible to say that he wasn't worried. "That girl is very clever. As long as she doesn't say that she is your daughter, no one will touch her," Emperor Qing said lightly. Hearing this, Feng Jiu's mouth twitched. He said, "Although what you said is the truth, you make it sound as if it is unlucky to be my child. Mother, the luckiest thing for us is that you are our mother," Howard Hurdley said. In his heart, he had always been proud to have such a mother. To be her child was the luckiest thing in his life. "Mother, the happiest thing for us is to be your child," Mu Chun also said, looking at her with eyes full of admiration. "Good boy." Feng Jiu smiled and rubbed their heads. "I want to bring the children back to stay for a while." She looked at Emperor Qing and said. She recalled that she had said that she would not disturb him if the children followed him, let alone see the children. However, now that she saw the children, she wanted to bring them back to her side for a period of time. On the one hand, she thought that now that she had ascended and killed the Northern Flame Great Emperor, the other three Great Emperors would be in seclusion to recuperate and would not dare to do anything to her in the short term. On the other hand, she had settled most of the matters in her territory and had nothing else to do during this period of time. Therefore, she wanted to bring her child back to stay with her for a while. Hearing her words, Emperor Qing didn't look surprised at all, as if he had expected it. He didn't refuse, but glanced at his two disciples and nodded. "Okay, I'm going out to do something. You can take the two of them back first. For now, your place should be safe." "Thank you very much, Master." The two of them immediately thanked him happily. "Go back with your mother. Don't just play. Remember to cultivate. When you return, I will check on you." Emperor Qing instructed in a deep voice. "Yes." The two of them grinned, their little faces beaming with a rare look of joy. "Thank you." Feng Jiu also thanked him. Emperor Qing looked at her and said, "You don't have to worry about that girl. I will take care of her." Hearing this, Feng Jiu did not know what he meant. However, she knew that he cared a lot about Yuer and doted on her a lot. Naturally, he would not let anything happen to her. Now that he had said this, there was nothing to worry about. Chapter 4908. She stayed in Cloud Sky Mountain for 2 days before bidding farewell to Qingdi. Taking the two children with her, she boarded a flying ship and left, heading towards the Immortal Island. Qingdi also left not long after they left, and his whereabouts were unknown. At the same time, in the forest, Xiao Junyin's face was dark as he searched for the little fellow who had slipped away right under his nose. Compared to searching for the divine beast, he felt that it was better to find that little thing first. After all, the danger here was far greater than he had imagined. If an accident happened, not even his bones would remain. As for the divine beast, it would not be able to escape from their territory. In the end, it would belong to the Xiao family. Even if he did not find it this time, the elders in the family would personally come over. However, what he did not expect was that he had been searching in the forest for the past few days, but there was no trace of that little fellow. On the other side, Xiao Juanheng returned to the residence and directly went to find his father, asking him to quickly send people to check if there was a 5 or 6-year-old girl who had left home. He returned to the courtyard to change his clothes and eat a meal. Not long after, he saw a guard come forward to report. "Young master, family head invites you over." "Understood." Xiao Juanheng replied and followed the guard forward. Arriving at the hall, he saw that not only was his father sitting in the main seat, but the other elders were also present. Seeing this, he stepped forward and cupped his hands in greeting. Greetings to father and elders. Juinheng. After the people in the family investigated, they reported that there was no 5 or 6-year-old girl who had left home. What happened to this little girl? Tell us more in detail. Family head, Xiao, said in a low voice, his gaze falling on his son who was standing in the middle. Hearing this, Xiao Juinheng said as expected in his heart. He had long suspected that the child was not a disciple of their Xiao family. He did not expect that she really was not. However, if she was not a disciple of their Xiao family, then whose child was she? How could she appear silently in the forest on their island? Father, elders, that little girl was 5 or 6 years old and did not have an adult by her side. When I was being attacked by the pride of lions, that little girl suddenly appeared. However, the strange thing was that after she appeared, the pride of lions that attacked me fled in panic. At that time, I did not think much of it, but now that I think about it, it might be related to this little girl. His voice was gentle and clear, like flowing water, as he explained the situation to them. At that time, I thought that our immortal island had its own barriers and arrays. Even if our Xiao clan's disciples didn't have a token, they wouldn't be able to leave. Therefore, I thought that she was a child of our clan who had sneaked out to play. However, I saw that she didn't have anything like a teleportation token on her. When I asked her later, she said at this point he paused. What is it? One of the elders asked with a solemn expression. Someone of unknown origin had sneaked into the immortal island. This could be a big or small matter. She said she went into the forest with Junyan. As Xiao Junheng spoke, she looked at the people seated in the hall and continued. Because I was worried that she would encounter danger alone in the forest, I forcefully kept her by my side. Later on, when we were attacked by a pack of wolves, Junyan just happened to appear and save us. Moreover, she seemed to be very familiar with that little girl. Close. Chapter 4909. Family head Xiao asked in surprise. You said that Junyan was very close to that child? Yes, after seeing that child, she kept hugging him. As Xiao Junheng spoke, he saw the astonishment and surprise on their faces, and the corners of his lips could not help but curl up slightly. At that time, when he saw Junyan being so close to that child, he probably had the same expression. Everyone present knew that Xiao Junyan was the most outstanding genius of the Xiao family in the past few hundred years. Moreover, he was the son of the patriarch's elder brother. It was just that Xiao Junyan was the only one left from the main branch. And because he lost his parents at a young age, he only knew how to cultivate from a young age and was not close to others. Therefore, when they heard Junheng's words, everyone was so astonished. Under everyone's astonished expressions, Xiao Junheng continued to explain the matter to them. After hearing his words, an elder frowned and said, You mean to say that the child ran away after putting down the few of you? Even Junyan left? Yes, Xiao Junheng replied, and did not say anything else. The hall was silent for a moment, and after a while, an elder looked at the others and asked, What kind of person do you think would put a child here? Moreover, it's so quiet. Looks like we have to find that child first. Family head Xiao said, and immediately said to Xiao Junheng, Bring some people to search in the forest. After finding that child, do not hurt him. Bring him back first, and we will personally question him. As he spoke, he threw a command token to him. Okay. Xiao Junheng received the command tablet and responded. After bowing, she withdrew. You did not know about the matters here, but she knew that she had to hide well so as to avoid being caught by the Xiao family. After all, she had put down those people, and they would naturally know that she was not a child of the Xiao family. At this time, she was squatting in the cave, roasting a prey that the lion had brought back, and did not know that the smoke from the food she was roasting was curling up from outside the cave. Xiao Junyan had been searching for a few days, but there had been no news. At this moment, he was standing atop the forest on his sword, looking down in all directions. When he saw the place where wisps of smoke were rising, his eyes flashed. When the Xiao clan's disciples entered the forest, they didn't have much time to roast meat. Most of them ate seclusion grain pills. Only the fat baby would think of roasting meat in this place. Thinking about this, the corners of his lips curled up. He knew that the girl was very clever. He immediately retracted his aura and headed towards the direction of the light smoke. Smelling the fragrant meat, Yu-Er's small face showed a happy smile. She cut a big piece of meat for Lion. Then she also cut a piece of meat to eat. Delicious, so fragrant. My culinary skills are getting better and better. She smelled the aroma of the meat and swallowed her saliva. She tore off a small piece and ate it. The lion was lying beside her, eating roasted meat. Ever since it had followed this little master, it seemed that it had become not too fond of eating raw meat. At this time, one person and one beast in the cave did not know that on a tree not far from the entrance of the cave, Xiao Junyan was pressing down the leaves that were blocking his line of sight. Looking at one person and one beast in the cave, a trace of surprise flashed past his eyes. Chapter 49:10. For a moment, his heart was filled with curiosity, and he increasingly felt that this little thing was very mysterious. Her body seemed to be an endless treasure, and no one knew what would be discovered in the next moment. Looking at that cave, the corner of his mouth slightly curled up. Hiding here these days? It was also a good place to hide, but after all, she was still too young. Even if she was intelligent, she was still too careless. He lightly jumped down from the tree and walked towards that cave. Yu-Er, who was eating barbecued meat in the cave, didn't know that someone was approaching, but Lion was the first to sense that an unfamiliar aura had entered their range, so it immediately rushed to the cave and looked outside. It thought that it would be a beast, but didn't expect that it was actually that youth. "Master!" That person came again. Lion stood at the entrance of the cave and didn't retreat because that youth had already seen it, so even if it retreated now, it would be useless. "And? Who? Who found it?" Yu-Er was startled. Then she promptly jumped up and looked towards the entrance of the cave and saw that person called Xiao Junyan walking toward her. She was stunned for a moment and immediately frowned. Why is this person lingering like a ghost? Lingering like a ghost? Xiao Junyan stopped his footsteps, and seeing that little thing looking at him with disgust, his eyes also turned cold. Without batting an eyelid, Yu-Er prepared to leave the cave with the lion to slip away, but she heard his voice. "Where do you want to escape to? What do you want to do?" Yu-Er stopped her footsteps and angrily glared at him. "I should be the one asking you this question." He walked closer, and at this time, that lion rushed in front of that little fellow, and with a threatening roar, it rushed towards him. He stopped his footsteps, shot a glance at that lion, then looking at that little fellow, he asked, "Who are you? How did you come here?" His voice paused, and without waiting for her to speak, he said, "You are not a person of Xiao family. This can no longer be concealed. I got the news. The family has already sent people to look for you. You better tell me the truth, otherwise no one will be able to protect you at that time." Yu-Er rolled her eyes. Not knowing what she thought, she asked, "You also came to catch me?" Xiao Junyan didn't speak and only looked at her. At first, he only thought that this chubby baby was interesting, but he didn't expect that this little thing was also a little fox and actually slipped away from his eyes twice. Catch her? He didn't want to, but he also wouldn't let her slip away from his eyes again. "Follow me back to Xiao family," he said, looking at her. "I will protect your safety." "Don't." Yu-Er directly refused. She looked at him, then revealing a crafty smile, she patted the lion beside her. "As you can see, this god beast is mine. It listens to me." Hearing this, Xiao Junyan looked at her deeply and asked, So? Hee hee. She laughed, then patting the lion's head, she said, "You stall him. I will run first." After saying that, Yu immediately rushed towards the forest. Xiao Junyan was about to give chase when she saw the lion pouncing over. She could only turn around and attack the lion. As the young patriarch of the Xiao family and the future patriarch of the Xiao family, Xiao Junyan's strength and talent were naturally excellent. Otherwise, the elders in the family would not have allowed him to come here to search for that mythological beast. Chapter 49:11. After delaying for a while, the lion let out a low roar and quickly retreated. Xiao Junyan saw that the lion had retreated and did not give chase. Instead, he chased in the direction that the little thing had escaped. In terms of footwork and movement techniques, Yu was considered to be the best among the three siblings at such a young age. Her speed was also the fastest. With the lion delaying her, she quickly left. As long as she escaped first, it would be easy to meet up with the lion. But what she did not expect was that after she had run a long distance away, she turned back to look and saw that Xiao Junyan was chasing after her. "Ah, he's coming," bullying a child. She muttered and yelled as she ran. She didn't care about the direction. She just ran left and right in the forest as fast as she could. It's that child. Up ahead, a group of young boys and girls were gathered together and chatting as they walked. Seeing a child running towards them, they could not help but point at her in surprise. The news from the family said that it's a 5 to 6-year-old child. "Isn't that her? Quick, catch her," one of the youths said as he hurriedly rushed towards the child who was running over. One had to know that catching her was a great merit. Yu was running, and she looked back from time to time. For a moment, she did not pay attention to the front. When she noticed those people in front of her, she gave a cry of surprise and quickly changed direction. "Quick, catch her quickly. Don't let her escape." Everyone saw that the child had turned a corner and was running toward the other side. They quickly shouted, "Surround her! Surround her from that side!" Being blocked by these people, Xiao Junyan, who had been chasing from behind, had also caught up. When he saw the disciples of the family holding swords in their hands, he immediately frowned and shouted in a cold voice, "Don't hurt him." Everyone was startled. When they heard the voice, they looked towards the direction of the voice. When they saw that it was Xiao Junyan, their faces changed, and they quickly called out respectfully, "Young lord, keep your swords. Don't hurt her." Xiao Junyan ordered coldly. Gathering his breath, he rushed forward and grabbed at the little thing. "Ah!" Yu cried out in alarm, but her body nimbly dodged. Xiao Junyan grabbed at thin air and was stunned for a moment, as if she had not expected this chubby baby to be so skilled. She leaned forward to grab at her again. At this moment, the roar of a lion sounded. "Roar! Ah, berserk beast! No, that was a divine beast. Look at the pattern on the lion's head. Hiss! How could this be? Did someone form a contract with this divine beast?" One of the youths sucked in a breath of air as he suddenly realized that the young master was here. His eyes shone with surprise. Could it be that young master has contracted with this mythological beast? But just as they were talking, they saw the divine beast pounce forward. They thought that the divine beast was going to pounce on the child, but they didn't expect it to pounce on their young master. "Young master, be careful." Everyone was so frightened that their faces changed, and they instinctively cried out in alarm. They saw their young master's hand that was reaching out to grab. The child paused, and he clenched his fist tightly. Above his fist, a stream of air that was visible to the naked eye condensed, and with an extremely fast speed, he swung his fist towards the head of the divine beast. Yu ran away, and when she turned around to look, she saw Xiao Junyan's fist heavily smashing onto the lion's head, and the lion's claws also fiercely scratched his arm, leaving behind several deep marks. Chapter 49:12. Audacious evil creature. You dare to injure my Xiao family's young master. A sharp and low roar came from the sky. Accompanying the roar was a powerful pressure and a golden net that glowed with golden light. Yu looked towards the direction of the voice when she heard it, only to see a group of cultivators wearing the same color-black robes descending from the sky. Among them, 8 of them were holding a corner of the golden net in their hands as they covered the lion below, as if they wanted to capture it. Immediately, she exclaimed, "Lion, come back." As soon as the voice came out, with a thought, the lion turned into a ray of light and entered her space. At the same time, the golden net caught nothing, but those people turned around and surrounded the little person who was preparing to escape. "Where do you think you're going?" That group of people surrounded Yu, and one of them stretched out his hand to grab Yu. That extremely fast speed brought along a swift and fierce momentum, which made Xiao Junyan's heart sink. Ignoring the injury on her arm, she flashed forward, and when that person was about to attack her, she reached out her hand and hugged that small figure into her bosom. "Young master." Seeing that it was Xiao Junyan, that person wanted to retract his hand, but it was already too late. He could only forcefully change the direction of his attack, leaving behind a few deep handprints on the tree trunk. Yor was protected in her embrace, and as Xiao Junyan turned around, she saw the handprints left behind by that person who had attacked the tree trunk. The little person's eyes immediately turned cold and looked towards that person. She saw that it was a middle-aged man. His face looked ordinary, but there was a fierce aura around him. There were no wounds on his body, but his body was emitting a bloody smell. It could be imagined that the number of people and beasts that had died in his hands was innumerable. Junyan, you're injured. Xiao Juanheng came down from behind, and seeing the hand that was hanging by the side of the body with blood dripping down, he frowned. Treat the wound first. He walked forward, his gaze complicated as he looked at that little girl, but did not say anything more. Instead, he took out medicine and strips of cloth and prepared to treat the wound. Xiao Junyan lowered her head to look at the chubby baby in her arms who was sitting quietly without saying a word. She saw that the baby was staring at the person who had attacked her just now. The baby's gaze was so calm that it did not seem like a 5- or 6-year-old child's. It's all right, don't worry. I'm here. I won't let you get hurt, he said, awkwardly comforting the little girl who he thought was frightened. Yor didn't speak, merely lowering her eyes. Her gaze just happened to come across his bleeding hand. She pursed her lips, but didn't move. After helping him deal with the injury on his arm, Xiao Juanheng looked towards him and said, the clan already knows about her situation. We need to bring her back. My father and the clan elders will personally question her. Let's go, Xiao Junyan said. From a moment he saw the black-robed guard arrive, he knew that this little thing could no longer be hidden. He took his men and followed them back, while the others also crushed their teleportation jade tablets and returned to their clans. Along the way, Yor didn't speak. Only when they arrived at the entrance of the immortal mansion did she speak. Put me down. I will walk by myself. Hearing that, Xiao Junyan glanced at her and put her down. Chapter 49:13. In the hall, Xiao family head and various elders were already sitting there waiting. When they saw the few people who came in, their gaze first fell on Xiao Junyan. Junyan, how is the injury on your hand? Is it serious? Xiao family head inquired. According to the report of the people who came back earlier, she was scratched by the divine beast. I'm fine, Xiao Junyan said and bowed towards them. This is that child. Xiao family head looked at the little girl who came in from behind. He didn't expect it to be such a child. After all, he had heard that she had already contracted that divine beast. This was something that none of them had expected. Such a small child. How did she make a divine beast recognize her as its master? At this time, they carefully sized up this child. Seeing her walking in from behind with her short little legs, she was neither flustered nor scared. Facing their sizing up and probing, she didn't lower her head, nor did she shift her gaze away. Instead, she used her pair of beautiful eyes to stare at them, as if she was sizing them up. Everyone in the hall were people of the older generation. Naturally, with a glance, they could see that this wasn't the transformation of a few hundred years old expert. After all, her bone age couldn't change into a human. This was just a 5- or 6-year-old child. Such a small child, with such bearing and courage, naturally couldn't be the child of an ordinary family. Therefore, after everyone looked at each other, Xiao family head opened his mouth and asked, What is your name? How did you come here? My name is Yin Qi. Cloud Sky Mountains Qing Di is my master. Standing in the hall, Yor, a small person, softly and clearly reported her master's name, because she was very clear that she had to say it even if she didn't want to. Moreover, her master had said that if she caused any trouble outside, as long as she reported his name, others wouldn't dare to make things difficult for her. Perhaps because they didn't expect that this child would actually say her name and master upon asking. Everyone in the hall was startled for a moment, and then somewhat stunned. Especially Xiao Junyan and Xiao Juanheng. It wasn't that they didn't ask her name and origin, but she didn't say it all along. One of the elders somewhat suspiciously asked, You said Cloud Sky Mountains Qing Di is your master? Yes. You are nodded. How dare you? The clan elder's expression darkened. He slammed his palm on the table and stood up. His aura was also released from his body because of his angry roar and rushed towards the little person. Xiao Junyan frowned and took a step forward to block the oppressive aura emanating from the elder's body. Seeing this, the clan elder's brows furrowed together as he looked deeply at Xiao Junyan. He did not say anything, but merely retracted his oppressive aura. Being blocked in front of her, Yu glared at him. Then poking the waist of the person in front of her, she said softly, "You are blocking my line of sight." She wasn't afraid of that old man's pressure. If he dared to bully her, she would definitely complain to her master. She wanted her master to help her vent her anger. Xiao Junyan heard the words behind him, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He stepped aside slightly and glanced at her at the same time. Seeing that she was as fearless as a little beast, he sighed softly in his heart. She was still young after all, and did not know any better. She did not know that the clan elder's oppressive aura could cause the blood and qi in her body to churn and cause her internal injuries. Chapter 49:14. That clan elder stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Sweeping a glance at the fearless little girl, he slowly walked forward. His aged voice carried a bit of fierceness as he shouted, "At such a young age, your mouth is full of lies. As everyone knows, Emperor Qing did indeed have a disciple called Yin Shi. However, that disciple of his was not as old as you. Moreover, that disciple of his died a few years ago because he failed to pass the tribulation. Where did a disciple like you come from?" He walked in front of Yu and looked down at her from above. His dignified presence and imposing manner made Xiao Juanheng's heart tremble. However, Yu raised her head and looked directly at that clan elder without any fear in her eyes. Seeing this, everyone was even more surprised and even more curious about her origin and birth. Seeing this, Xiao Juanheng sighed in his heart. He actually did not know that this little girl had courage. Seeing this, Xiao Junyan's lips curled up slightly, her eyes filled with admiration and fondness. This chubby little girl was indeed very interesting. That clan elder stared at the little girl in front of him and shouted in a deep voice, "Who exactly are you? What are your intentions for sneaking into my Xiao family's secluded immortal island? Who instigated you to do this? How did you come here? If you don't quickly tell the truth, I will not let you off easily." Yuer's pair of eyes stared at him and said in a soft voice, "You said that this is a secluded place. Then how do you know that my master did not accept me as his disciple? What evidence do you have to prove that I am lying?" Then she paused and stared at him with her clear eyes. With a serious face, she said, "I'm not a 3-year-old child anymore. It's useless to threaten me. I'm not afraid of you. Also, don't bully me just because you're older. I can't beat you, but my master can." Hearing her words, everyone's mouth twitched. Did this child become a spirit? Or were all the children outside this quick-witted? That clan elder was refuted by such a child. Immediately, he blew his beard and glared at the chubby little girl in front of him and asked, "You say that you are Emperor Qing's disciple. What proof do you have?" Yu blinked and asked curiously, "What proof do I need? I am obviously my master's disciple. My master and I both know that. What proof do I need?" This question instantly left the elder speechless. Everyone in the hall also fell silent. In an instant, the hall was filled with a strange and inexplicable silence. There was a trace of a smile on Xiao Junyan's face as she said, "If you want to know if what she said is the truth, you only need to send someone to investigate." Cough. Xiao clan master coughed, then immediately whispered a few words to a person behind him. Then looking towards Yu, he asked, "Did you contract that god beast?" "Yes." Yu nodded and said. In any case, they had seen it, so they couldn't deny it even if they wanted to. "That's a divine beast. How did you make it willing to contract with you?" Patriarch Xiao asked again, unable to hide his curiosity. It was originally not a god beast. It was originally only a peak-level holy beast, and was still a bit lacking from god beast. Yu gestured with her little hand. Hearing this, the expressions of everyone in the hall changed slightly. They naturally knew that the divine beast had just evolved, but why was she able to form a contract with it as soon as it evolved? Chapter 49:15. Saying that, Er's little face showed a helpless expression. Later, it insisted on following me, and I had no choice but to accept it. Hearing her words, everyone's face darkened. Did she mean that the mythological beasts born on the immortal island were eager to join them? However, if it was really an elixir pill that helped the divine beast to advance, it might be Emperor Qing's doing. After all, he was a great emperor. How could he not have some elixirs with miraculous effects on his hands? Could it be that this little fat girl with a fox-like temperament was really Emperor Qing's disciple? If so, then her coming here was Emperor Qing's doing? But if that was the case, what was Emperor Qing's intention? For a moment, countless guesses flashed through everyone's mind, but in the end, they all turned into light sighs. It seemed that they could only wait for the news to see if this little girl was really Emperor Qing's disciple, as she said. Take her away and guard her. Xiao family head said, and ordered people to take her away. At this time, Xiao Junyan stepped forward and said, "Second uncle, I will take her to my courtyard." Hearing this, Xiao family head frowned and said, "Junyan, her identity is still unclear, and there is a mythological beast by her side. It is not appropriate to place her in your courtyard. I will only be at ease if I personally watch her," Xiao Junyan said. Seeing this, the Xiao family's patriarch frowned and remained silent. He did not reply, as if he was thinking about something. The elders in the hall also did not speak, because what Xiao family head said was right. This child's origin was unknown, and under the situation where her identity was still uncertain, how could they place such a variable by their Xiao family's young master's side? It was too dangerous. Xiao Juanheng saw that some of the elders wanted to speak, and immediately stepped forward and said to the person on the main seat, "Father, she and Junyan are familiar with each other in the forest. With Junyan looking after her, there should not be any big problem. If you are worried, I can also help to look after her." Heard them talking, and her eyes moved around, staring at each of their expressions, and secretly curled her lips. Look at her what? Did they think she was a dangerous person? She had already reported her master's name, and these people were still guarding against her like they were guarding against a thief. Really boring. I'll take her back first. Xiao Junyan also didn't wait for them to say anything. Directly turning around, she stretched out her hand and scooped her up, then walked out with large strides. Looking at this scene, everyone in the hall frowned even more. One of the elders asked, "Why is Junyan so concerned about this child? Right now, her identity is still unclear if she were to do anything to harm Junyan. The way I see it, she wouldn't dare. After all, this is our Xiao clan's territory. If she really hurts someone, she won't be able to leave alive," another elder said. One of the elders said, "Patriarch, if this child is really Emperor Qing's disciple, shouldn't we inform the Patriarch?" Patriarch Xiao nodded and said, "Yes, once I confirm the news, I will personally inform the ancestor. After all, this is related to Emperor Qing, so we can't be careless. Moreover, if he is really Emperor Qing's disciple, why did Emperor Qing send him here? I guess I'll have to ask the Patriarch." Everyone saw that he already had an idea, so they didn't say anything more. They stood up, cupped their hands, and left one after another. Chapter 49:16. On the other side, Xiao Junyan brought Er back to her courtyard and settled her down. After that, she instructed the kitchen to prepare some food. Originally, there were no servant girls in the courtyard, but because of her arrival, she sent people to the front courtyard to get 2 servant girls to serve her. Under the guidance of the 2 servant girls, Yu entered a side room to take a bath. After changing her clothes, she came out and saw Xiao Junyan, who had already changed his clothes, sitting at the table in the courtyard. And at this time, there were more than 10 exquisite dishes emitting fragrance on the table. Those exquisite dishes were only a small dish, about 2 people's share. More than 10 small plates had different dishes on them, which made people's appetite greatly aroused. "This is made by your kitchen." Sat at the table and looked at the exquisite dishes on the table. Her eyes were shining. "And try it." He picked up some dishes for her and put them in her bowl. Seeing this, Yu didn't stand on ceremony and directly picked up the chopsticks to eat. Xiao Junyan also didn't speak and just watched her eat. Occasionally, he would pick up some dishes for her. After she was full, she put down her chopsticks and burped. Only then did he let people remove the dishes on the table. How long have you been following Emperor Qing? Xiao Junyan poured a cup of water for her and asked casually. Very long. You said with a smile. Is there food in the mountains? There is. There are wild game in the mountains, and Master will let us go down a mountain to buy. You got down from the chair and walked around the courtyard looking all around. Emperor Qing has other disciples besides you? Xiao Junyan's eyes flashed and asked again. Yes, I also have 2 senior brothers. She wasn't afraid to let him know about this. After all, as long as they investigated, they would naturally find out. Her master had accepted the 3 of them and didn't hide it. Many people knew about them. On this side, Xiao Junyan intentionally or unintentionally inquired about her information. On the other side, the people of Xiao family also spread the news and came to know that a little girl had entered their place. Moreover, that little girl had stayed alone in the forest for many days and was only discovered recently. For a time, the people below were discussing, but more of them were curious. In the early morning of the next day, Xiao family head received the news and called Xiao Junyan and Yunqi. Got up early and rode the lion in Xiao Junyan's courtyard. After hearing the summons of Xiao family head, she rode the lion and followed Xiao Junyan to the front courtyard. Everyone of Xiao family was already very curious about her. At this time, knowing that Xiao was summoned, many people came early to watch. When they saw that little girl riding a majestic lion and following their young master to the front courtyard, many people were endlessly astonished. Did you see that? It's that lion. That's the divine beast that advanced a while ago. I didn't expect it to become her mount. She's so young. How did she tame that mythological beast? I heard that she's Emperor Qing's disciple. I don't know whether it is true or not. Emperor? Is he an expert on the same level as our family's great emperor? Another young man asked. Chapter 49:17. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but become silent. That was just a 5 or 6-year-old child. If she really lied, would the patriarch and the rest really kill her? Under everyone's gaze, Yu rode the lion and followed Xiao Junyan to the front hall. When she arrived at the front hall, she jumped down from the lion's back and walked in. The people sitting in the hall looked at the little girl riding the lion, and their eyes flashed. Their gaze swept past her and landed on the lion beside her. This was the mythological beast. They didn't expect that the mythological beast that was born with great difficulty was actually contracted by a little girl from outside. Family head, clan elders. Xiao Junyan bowed towards them. Junyan sit. Patriarch Xiao gestured. Xiao Junyan paused for a moment, then walked to the seat and sat down. At the same time, she looked at Yunqi, who was standing in the middle of the hall. From yesterday's intentional or unintentional inquiry, she could conclude that she was indeed the disciple of Emperor Qing. Therefore, at this time, she was not worried about her. Yunqi, you said you were the disciple of Emperor Qing? Then let me ask you, how many disciples does Emperor Qing have? Patriarch Xiao asked. His dignified gaze landed on the little girl standing there. My master has 3 disciples now, and there are 2 senior brothers in front of me. Yu said, her big eyes looking at Patriarch Xiao without fear. Hearing this, Patriarch Xiao and an elder sitting on the left side looked at each other and asked, It is said outside that Emperor Qing obtained an ancient god striking whip from a mortal Ling Mu. This whip is also called 9-section red flame phoenix scale whip, and he gave this whip to his little disciple as a weapon. Since you are the disciple of Emperor Qing, you should know about this whip. Hearing this, turned her hand and took out that whip from her space. Smiling, she said, You are talking about this? It is indeed a gift from my master. Could it be that this is the so-called proof that you are talking about? Looking at the whip, many of the elders stood up and stared at the whip. They had also heard about this whip, but this whip was in Immortal Ling Mu's Mirror Flower Water Moon spiritual land, and for many years, no one was able to take it out. They didn't expect that. Can I have a look? Seeing that whip, Patriarch Xiao was sure that she was by his side. He had only heard of the power of this whip, but had never seen it before. "Sure," Yor answered. She wasn't afraid that her whip would be taken away by others, rather walked forward and handed over the whip to her. When she first obtained this whip, she was worried that someone would snatch it away from her. However, her master told her not to worry. Other than her, no one else would dare to use this whip or snatch it away from her. At that time, she didn't know. Only after a period of time did she find out. It turned out that her master had spread the word that the owner of this whip could only be his disciple. If anyone dared to snatch it, or use it, their entire family would be exterminated. It was also because of these words that those people looked at her whip. Even though they were envious, they only dared to look and did not dare to take her whip away. Otherwise, the person who snatched the whip would definitely have the ability to withstand her master's fury and killing intent. Otherwise, who would dare to rush to their deaths? No matter how good a treasure was, if it couldn't be used, then it was no different from trash. Chapter 49:18. The clan elders also came forward to take a look. In their eyes, for them to call it treasure, it was naturally an extraordinary treasure. But looking at this whip, they didn't dare to have any random thoughts. Now that they saw this whip, they naturally confirmed the identity of this little girl as Emperor Qing's disciple, Yin Shi. Not to mention that they couldn't have any ideas about this whip. They had to treat her as a distinguished guest and couldn't neglect her. Not to mention her origin, just the fact that her master was Emperor Qing was already extraordinary. Patriarch Xiao walked down and personally handed the whip to her, saying, "Now that we have confirmed that you are Emperor Qing's disciple, how did you appear here? Did the master know?" Yu Er's eyes moved, and she said, "My master asked me to come out and gain experience, but I also don't know how I came here. Originally, I also didn't want to come here." "Oh, then where did you want to go?" Patriarch Xiao asked. Yu pursed her lips and shook her head. "I can't say." Hearing this, Patriarch Xiao laughed and said, "Well, now that you are here, do you want to go back to Cloud Sky Mountain? Or do you want to stay in Xiao family for a while? Or do you want to go to the place you originally wanted to go? Do you need me to send someone to send you? You can send me out of the enchantment here. I can go back by myself. There is no need for you to send me." She quickly said. She sneaked out and hadn't seen her mother yet. She didn't want to go back so quickly. "That's fine then." Before he finished speaking, Xiao Junyan stood up and interrupted him at the same time. "Patriarch, let me send her back. After all, she is still so young. It is not safe for her to be alone outside." "No need. My master asked me to come out and gain experience, so he wanted me to be alone," Yu immediately said. Since she was Emperor Qing's beloved disciple, with Emperor Qing's ability, it was naturally impossible for him to let her be alone outside. He must have made some arrangements. He was also clear about the divine sense of an expert. He guessed that it was Emperor Qing's divine sense. With her, if she really encountered any fatal danger, he would definitely appear to save her. If he sent someone to protect her, it would be unnecessary. Thinking of this, he said to Xiao Junyan, "Junyan, you are the young master of the Xiao clan. Our Xiao clan has been in seclusion for many years. Without the orders of the old ancestor, no one is allowed to take half a step out of the Celestial Island. Even you are the same." He glanced at Xiao Junyan, who was pursing her lips, and said, "Yin Shi is the beloved disciple of the Azure Emperor. The Azure Emperor will naturally give her a treasure to protect her. Her safety is not something we need to worry about. Since she wants to leave by herself, we will take care of her." Xiao Junyan didn't say anything. She just looked at the chubby baby, her expression changing slightly. No one knew what she was thinking. "Many thanks, Patriarch Xiao." Yu respectfully bowed to him and thanked him. The Xiao clan's patriarch smiled, and then he gazed at her and said, "Yun Shi, your master is acquainted with my clan's ancestor. Since you've come here, then stay for a few more days before you leave. I'll let Junyan bring you around our Xiao family's immortal island. It won't be too late to leave after 2 days." Hearing this, Yu thought for a moment. Just as she was about to speak, she heard Xiao Junyan immediately agree. "Second uncle, don't worry. I will bring her around to play, as a host," Xiao Junyan said. When she looked at Yun Shi, The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Chapter 49:19. Seeing this, Patriarch Shao instructed Xiao Junyan to bring her around to have a look. After watching the 2 people and 1 beast leave, an elder stroked his beard and said, "I really didn't expect that she was the disciple of Emperor Qing. It seems that this lion can't come back. Haha, it's fine. After all, it only advanced after eating her elixir. It can be considered to be fated with her and should belong to her." Patriarch Xiao Junyan waved his hand and said with a smile, "It was just a divine beast. He wouldn't be too calculative." On this side, the people in the hall were sitting and chatting about some things. On the other side, Xiao Junyan brought you to the Xiao family's immortal residence to have a look around. On the other side, Feng Zhou brought her 2 sons to the immortal island. When the flying ship arrived at the immortal island, she brought them down from the flying ship and took a deep breath before walking towards the boundary. She threw out the flying feather from her waist and sat on it. She reached out and hugged her 2 sons who were sitting on her left and right. She smiled and said to them, "Look, this is our home. After Mother has cleared all the potential dangers, I will bring you back to live here. Mother, this place is really beautiful. It's like a fairyland. It's even more beautiful than Master's Cloud Sky Mountain and immortal Elder Lingmu's place." "How?" said as he looked at everything below with shining eyes. "Mother, there's a rainbow bridge over there." How pointed at the rainbow bridge with a surprised look on his little face. "Yes, Mother will bring you there to have a look," Feng Zhou said with a smile and led them to the rainbow bridge. They didn't get down a walk, but sat on the flying feather and slowly flew over. The 2 children stretched out their hands to touch it, as if they could feel the rainbow between their palms. That kind of feeling was very strange. Everything here is formed by the immortal qi. It's all real and won't disappear. Other than here, the other places are also very beautiful. Some time ago, Mother took over the immortal island of another great emperor. Now that the 2 islands have merged, the place has expanded a lot. Even if you want to tour the entire immortal island, I reckon that you won't be able to do it without 2 or 3 days. Feng Zhou chuckled and led them to the immortal residence. She said, "Because Du Fan and the rest can't come up, there are fewer people here now. But during this period of time, I brought a few interesting people over. One of them is a very good cook. Later, I'll let her cook something delicious for you." "Okay." The eyes of the 2 brightened as they responded in a crisp voice. Then they thought of their father and asked, "Mother, when will Father be able to come up and be with us? Your father's situation is not very good, but when he wakes up, it's estimated that the day of ascension will not be far away." She said softly and rubbed their heads. She smiled and said, "Don't worry about him. He's nurturing his spirit. It's very safe there and nothing will happen to him. If we wait for too long and he doesn't come up, then Mother will think of a way to break through the isolation of the heaven realm of the 9 heavens and bring you down to find him." "Mother, will Grandfather and the others come here to live with us in the future?" Mu Chen asked. He missed his relatives in the distant land. Hearing this, Feng Zhou smiled and said softly, "As long as they want to come, naturally they can come up and live with us. However, the Feng family's old house is where your grandfather and great-grandfather grew up. They have feelings for it. They might not want to leave it. In the future, even if the 2 places are separated, as long as the heaven realm is connected, it will be very convenient to go back and forth." Chapter 49:20. Sister Feng, Songmi, stood in front of the door and waved her hand. Seeing the red figure return, her face was full of excitement. She just looked at the 2 delicate and good-looking children beside her with some surprise. Feng Zhou brought the 2 children to a stop in front of the door. Putting away the flying feather, she smiled at Songmi. "What are you doing here? Did you know that I was coming back?" "No, I was going to take a stroll in the forest. I didn't expect to see Sister Feng here." As she spoke, she stared at the 2 children and asked curiously, "Sister Feng, who are they?" "These are my 2 sons, Xinyuan Hao and Xinyuan Mukin." Feng Zhou turned to the 2 children. "She's Songmi, the one Mother told you about. She's the one who can cook a lot of delicious food." However, when the 2 of them heard her words, they looked at each other. Hao said, Mother, she called you elder sister. Can we still call her elder sister? Fengjiu paused for a moment, then smiled. Then how about Andy? Aya, Annie's already old. I'm still young. Just call me Me. Mir said with a smile. Her bright eyes turned and looked at Fengjiu. She said somewhat embarrassedly, I have been thinking about it during this period of time. He this, that. Can I also call you master like Uncle Tai and the others? I want to stay here too. Fengjiu raised a brow. Recognize me as your master? Stay here with me? Don't you still want to travel around and cultivate? I think this place is pretty good. It's big, and there are a lot of treasures in the forest, so... She looked at her with a fawning smile. More importantly, she was the Empress of the Phoenix. With such a big golden thigh in front of her, if she didn't hug it, wouldn't she be scolded to death by her father and brothers when she got home? Moreover, she did like her. Although she was the Empress and the Phoenix Master, she did not have the feeling of being high and mighty when interacting with others. Instead, she was very amiable. During this period of time, her strength and cultivation had also increased while living on this immortal island. Moreover, the environment here was really good. If she didn't acknowledge her as her master, it wouldn't be good for her to continue staying here. Thus, after thinking about it, the best way was to let her accept her. Then, she would be able to stay here with a clear conscience. Master, please take me in. Anyway, you lack a cook by your side, so I'll take care of all the meals here in the future. She stepped forward and held her hand coquettishly. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, All right, let's go in first. Later, make some food for the two children and let them nourish their bodies. All right. She smiled and looked at Hao and Mu Chun. Let's go in. I've recently developed a new dish. I'll cook it for you later. Once inside, Songmi went to cook while Fengjiu brought the two children to the courtyard she had reserved for them. Tai Song and Yunyang came to pay their respects when they heard that Fengjiu had returned. They were also surprised that Fengjiu had two children of this age. After all, there was no one else on this immortal island other than a few of them. They also didn't hear anything about her other relatives. Suddenly, she brought two children back and said that they were her children. The two were naturally surprised. Chapter 49-21. After paying their respects, the two of them retreated. After they left, Howard asked, Mother, why did you want to bring them here? Even though there was no one by their mother's side to order around now, when Du Fan and the rest came up in the future, there would be no need to worry about not having people by her side. Therefore, he was puzzled as to why she would accept those two people who did not seem to have any special characteristics. Tai Song is a very outstanding weapon refiner. Keeping him is naturally to allow him to refine some weapons and the like in the future. She looked at the two children with a smile and said, As long as he is talented and you feel that he is useful, you can keep him here. Hearing this, the two nodded, but in their hearts, they were thinking about their mother's words. As long as he was talented, no matter what kind of person he was, she could keep him for her own use. Because of their arrival, the Fire Phoenix, Old White, and the rest also came in front of the two and circled around them. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and said to the few contracted beasts, All right, you can all disperse. Saying this, she looked at the two children and said, You two take a rest first. I will call you when it's time to eat. Tomorrow, Mother will accompany you to take a look around. Okay, the two of them responded. After watching her and the contracted beasts leave, they went to the courtyard their mother had prepared for them to rest. The difference between this place and their master's Cloud Sky Mountain was that there were transformed immortal servants here. Some of these immortal servants were transformed from red-crowned cranes. Some were transformed from flowers and spirit herbs, so they could be ordered around. Moreover, this place was also big. The two of them each had an exquisite and secluded courtyard, and there was also a distance between them. For them who often stayed in the cave, naturally, they preferred this kind of secluded and elegant courtyard. Compared to their comfort and happiness in this immortal abode, Yor, on the other side, was extremely bored. Even with that Xiao Junyan accompanying her to go sightseeing, she still had a look of complete lack of interest. After staying for 2 days with great difficulty, early in the morning, she ran to the Xiao family's head and said that she wanted to leave. You are leaving? Not staying for a few more days? Xiao family's head asked, looking at that little person with a smile on his face. No, I'm leaving. She blinked her beautiful eyes at him and said. Seeing this, he nodded and said, Fine, then I'll send you off. Come with me. As he spoke, he walked out and gestured for her to follow. Yu-Er's face showed a smile and promptly followed. He brought her to the exit of the immortal island. Looking at the sky outside, he smiled and said, In the future, if you have the chance, come and walk around with your master. Our Xiao clan welcomes you at any time. All right. Many thanks to Xiao family head. She bowed to him like a little adult and said. Patriarch Xiao nodded his head and turned around to take a look before asking, When you came to look for me, Junyan didn't know? I didn't tell him. I came out early. Because they live in the same courtyard, but there was also a front courtyard and a back courtyard, he naturally didn't know that she had woken up early. Hearing this, Patriarch Xiao didn't say anything else. He only said, All right, take care of yourself along the way. Finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve, and an opening appeared in the spirit formation in front of him. The next instant, Yu-Er was sent out. Chapter 49:22. As soon as he turned around, he saw Xiao Junyan rushing over from afar. Seeing this, he paused and waited for him to arrive before saying, You're late. When Xiao Junyan heard this, his eyes flashed and he looked towards the clouds, but her figure was already gone. In fact, he knew that she had been discharged from the hospital early, but he had rushed to see his grandfather early to ask for permission to leave the island. But in the end, he was not allowed. After so many years, this is the first time I've seen you care so much about someone. Patriarch Xiao looked at him with his hands behind his back and said, Work hard on your cultivation. In the near future, you will also have to leave the island to travel. She is the disciple of Emperor Qing. At that time, if you want to see her, you can go to Cloud Sky Mountain to pay a visit. Perhaps it was because he heard his words, but his originally somewhat disappointed expression was swept away, and what replaced it was a look of anticipation. He cupped his hands and thanked him. Many thanks, second uncle. I understand. After saying that, he didn't stay any longer and turned to leave. Seeing that he had recovered his usual vigor, Patriarch Xiao sighed softly and followed him back. On the other side, Yu-Er, who had been sent away, directly landed on a stage in the city below. There were two cultivators fighting on the stage, but who would have thought that just after the victor was decided, the winner was caught off guard by Yu-Er, who had fallen from the sky and knocked him unconscious on stage. This scene happened so quickly that the cultivators below the stage did not even have time to react. They just looked at the little girl who suddenly fell from the sky in astonishment. The surroundings became silent because of this sudden scene. After a strange silence, the crowd below the stage went into an uproar and everyone started to discuss. Where did this child come from? Why did she fall from the sky? What's going on? Why did she knock someone unconscious? This is too outrageous. Who would throw such a young child down from the sky? It doesn't seem like she was thrown. Just now, there seemed to be a stream of air supporting her down. Otherwise, that person who was knocked unconscious would not be standing there in a daze without any reaction. Yes, I also saw it just now. When this child fell, there was a very strong aura protecting her. After she fell on that cultivator, that aura disappeared. The people below the stage were discussing, and Yu-Er, who was sitting on the back of that person, was also startled. She lowered her head and looked at the person she was sitting on. She hurriedly stood up, patted her little butt, and tidied up her little dress while she was at it. Looking left and right, she wanted to get down from the stage, but she saw that the people around her were all staring at her, as if they were looking at a rare animal. Make way, I want to go down. Yu-Er got down from the stage. Child, where did you come from? Where are your parents? Don't tell me you want to leave, just like that, after knocking him out? A cultivator asked. At the same time, he blocked her path, not allowing her to leave. Yu-Er raised her head and looked towards that person, and seeing his pair of small eyes looking at her, she asked, You won't let me go? Of course you can't go. You knocked someone unconscious, so how can you just walk away? Naturally, you have to compensate something. That cultivator said with a light smile. Chapter 49:23. After Yu-Er glanced at that person, She turned around and looked at the person she had knocked out. She said in a soft and tender voice, "He was only knocked out by me. He's not injured. He'll wake up in a while." "Ah, who said that? Call out your family's lord." That cultivator crossed his arms and sneered. Ewer rolled her eyes and looked at him with a sweet smile. "Okay." As soon as her voice fell, she moved her mind. With a flash of light, a majestic lion appeared in front of everyone. Roar! A lion's roar, accompanied by the pressure of a divine beast, instantly scared off the surrounding people. Even the cultivator in front of them retreated in shock and fell to the ground in a moment of carelessness. Ewer patted the lion beside her and said with a smile, "What do you want to say? Tell it." Everyone looked at the lion that had suddenly appeared, and they were all dumbfounded with their eyes wide open. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, who would believe that such a little girl actually had such a powerful contract beast? This is a divine beast," a cultivator said, and involuntarily stepped back. For a little girl to have such a powerful contract beast, there were only two possibilities. One was that she was born in an extremely prominent family. The other was that she had an extremely powerful backer behind her. No matter which one it was, they didn't dare to provoke them. The surrounding people automatically opened up a path for her. Even the cultivator who had previously blocked her path hurriedly got up and retreated to the side. His gaze was somewhat fiery and somewhat fearful as he looked at the lion. A divine beast. How could such a powerful contract beast be contracted by such a child? Seeing that the crowd opened up a path, the lion lay down and allowed its little master to climb on its back. Ewer summoned the lion. Naturally, she didn't want to hide in the space. After all, she was a child outside. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, it was best to have something to shock them, so that those with evil intentions wouldn't dare to have any ideas about her. Therefore, after the lion lay down, she turned over and rode on its back. Only then did she walk through the path that the crowd had opened up. Riding the lion, she walked on the streets of the city, looking for an inn to stay at. A divine beast came out of the city. Moreover, it was a little girl who was wandering around on the streets. Once the news spread, the city lord of the city personally came out to see what was going on. "City lord, it's that little girl." A guard pointed at the entrance of the inn in front of them and said, "She's looking for an inn to stay at." The city lord looked at the scene in front of him with his hands behind his back. Because the lion was too conspicuous, everywhere it went, there would be a circle of people watching it. Yes, she should be a foreigner. Moreover, she doesn't have any relatives in this city, so she can only find an inn to stay. However, because that lion is too scary, those inns don't dare to receive her. The guard said in a low voice. Seeing this, the city master paused for a moment before walking forward. When the surrounding people saw that the city lord had arrived, they automatically opened up a path for him. Ewer, who was riding the lion, saw that the crowd had retreated. She turned her head and saw a middle-aged man walking towards her. She didn't say anything and only looked at him. Chapter 49:24. Since she had God Beast accompanying her at such a young age, it could be seen that she either came from a big clan or had a powerful backer behind her. Since she had come to the city, as the city lord, he had to make things convenient for her as the host. Ewer thought for a bit, and seeing she couldn't find a place to stay in the inn, and also seeing this person was the city lord, she nodded her head at once, then revealed a pure and happy smile. "Many thanks, city lord. Then I will disturb you." Look, at such a young age, her bearing was natural and unrestrained. It could be seen that her background was not ordinary. Everyone in the surroundings thought inwardly, and their gaze fell on that child. All of them were guessing which sect she came from. Seeing she nodded her head, the city lord immediately took her to the city lord residence. Seeing this, everyone in the city discussed for a while, then they dispersed, not to mention the city lord receiving her. Even if the city lord didn't appear personally, that little girl had God Beast guarding her side, so ordinary people also didn't dare to rashly make a move against her. In the city lord residence, the city lord personally took Ewer to a courtyard, then said to her with a smile, "Little girl, I still don't know what your name is. Can you tell me? Yu looked at this courtyard, and again looked at this city lord. Hearing his self-introduction, she heard that his surname was Gua. Gua clan was a big clan here, and he was elected as the city lord by all the clans in the city. After roughly understanding some matters, hearing his question, she thought for a bit, then said, "My name is Yin Chi." "Oh, Yin Chi, where are you from? Why are you here alone?" City Lord Gua asked in surprise. Yu sweetly smiled and crisply said, "My master doesn't like me to spread his name everywhere." After that, Yu asked again, "City Lord, which great emperor's territory is this place?" Hearing her say that he couldn't spread her master's name everywhere, the city lord pondered, who was her master? When he heard her asking about the great emperor of this region, he couldn't help but smile and said, "The great emperor of this territory is surnamed Shao, known as the South Heaven Great Emperor. He is one of the 10 great emperors. You're just a little kid. Why are you asking about this?" So to say, this place is the territory of Southern Heaven Great Emperor. I heard that a very powerful great emperor had ascended some time ago. Is her territory very far from here? Yuexine asked, somewhat anxious in her heart. When this Shao clan's master sent her away, why did he send her to their Shao clan's territory? Why didn't he send her a bit further? You're talking about Empress Phoenix Master. She is the first empress in thousands of years. Moreover, she is also an extraordinary character. The city lord smiled and walked to the table in the courtyard. He sat down and said, "Her territory is indeed quite far from here. After all, the territories are different." As he spoke, he looked at the little girl who had a conflicted expression and asked with a smile, "You're so young, so why are you so interested in those big shots? That kind of person isn't someone you and I can meet." However, she just lay on the table listlessly. She sighed and said, "I'm just curious. I also want to see her, but who would have thought that she was so far away?" Finished speaking, she again sat up and asked, "If we go from here, how long will it take to fly?" Chapter 49:25. As he spoke, he looked at the little girl and said, "You rest here first. The journey is long, so there's no need to rush. However, you want to go to such a far place. Do your family elders know?" After all, she was such a young child. Even if she had a mythological beast to protect her, it was still somewhat inappropriate. They know. Yu immediately nodded and said, but her eyes flashed. She reckoned that her master already knew that she had sneaked out, but she didn't know whether her master would be angry or not. "Then you rest first. If you need anything, just instruct the maid to do it, or go to the front courtyard to find me." Gua family's master stood up, and after saying a few words, he left first. Because such a little girl had come to the mansion, the people below also didn't know her origin. Therefore, he instructed them to treat her as an honored guest, and not let the people below be impudent. Yu walked around this courtyard, looked all around, and then walked to the largest room in the middle to rest. In the city lord's mansion, because of the city lord's instructions, the people in the mansion didn't dare to disturb that little honored guest. But at noon the next day, the old ancestor of the city lord's mansion, who was also the city lord's old ancestor, came out of seclusion. When he heard that a little girl had come to the mansion, and there was also a mythological beast accompanying her, he sent someone to summon the city lord to inquire about it. "Old ancestor, that child said that she's called Yun Shi, and she came out to gain experience under the order of her master. But from her words and deeds, we know that she wants to go to the territory of Empress Phoenix Master. Because she is young, natural, and unrestrained, and also has a mythological beast accompanying her, so we invited her to the mansion to rest." Gua family's master respectfully reported everything he knew about Yin Shi to the old ancestor who was sitting at the stone table in the courtyard. This was the old ancestor of their Gua family. Their Gua family was able to become the city lord precisely because of the existence of this old ancestor. After all, his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather had all died after failing to break through. Now, the Gua family only had one ancestor left to hold down the fort. If it weren't for this ancestor, their Gua family probably wouldn't even be able to squeeze into the aristocratic circle in the city. The old man had a head full of white hair and a white beard. He wore a plain white robe and was drinking tea as he listened to the young man's words. After a long time, he said, "I just received an invitation yesterday. An old friend of mine invited me to a banquet. If that child is really as you say, I can give her a ride." Hearing this, Patriarch Gua was stunned. He asked carefully, "Old ancestor, are you going to attend the banquet in the territory of the Empress Phoenix Master?" "Not bad." The old man stroked his beard and smiled. "Speaking of which, I haven't seen this old friend of mine for a long time. This time, it's because he's been in seclusion for many years and has broken through to the next level. That's why he invited me." Knowing that his ancestor had such a powerful old friend, Patriarch Gua was overjoyed. He immediately said, "Shall I summon Cloud 7 for you to meet?" The old man paused for a moment. He flicked his sleeves and stood up, saying, "No need. Bring me there. I'll go take a look first." "Yes." Patriarch Gua respectfully replied and brought him to the small courtyard. Although Yor had left Cloud Sky Mountain, she didn't stop cultivating when the conditions permitted. For example, at this moment, she was practicing her fist technique over and over again in the courtyard. Chapter 49:26. Seeing his family's old ancestor was calmly observing the little girl in the courtyard, Gua family's master also didn't speak, only quietly waited at one side. The old man looked for a while, but he was also unable to see which family this little girl's style belonged to. Then his gaze fell on that lion that was lying at the corner. It was indeed a mythological beast, but this aura should be a mythological beast that had just advanced. Merely, no matter when it had advanced, such a small child being able to contract with this mythological beast was indeed not simple. The lion was lying at the corner of the courtyard, looking at the two people at the entrance of the courtyard. After all, this was their place, so it didn't roar at them, only reminding its master. After practicing for a while, Yor stopped. Then looking towards the entrance of the courtyard, she softly called out, "City Lord?" Cough. City Lord Gua lightly coughed, then looking at his family's old ancestor. After seeing his old ancestor enter the courtyard, he hurriedly followed in while saying with a smile, "Yin Shi, this is my Gua family's old ancestor. He just happened to pass by, so he conveniently came to see if you were accustomed to living here." Hearing this, Yor's beautiful big eyes curved, and looking at the two people with a smile. "Many thanks, City Lord. This place is very good. Little girl is called Yunshi?" The old man looked at the little girl in front of him and asked, Yor nodded her head. Seeing her not alarmed, not afraid, and smiling appearance, the old man's smile deepened and said, "I heard you want to go to the territory of Empress Phoenix Master. Are you going to visit your relatives or go home?" "Going to play," Yor said with a smile. "So, you don't have a destination?" The old man asked again. Yor rolled her eyes but didn't speak. The old man stroked his beard, then walking to the table and sitting down, he said, "This old man has received an invitation from an old friend, and in these 2 days, I plan to attend a banquet. If you're also going there, then I can also give you a ride, so as to save you the trouble of rushing all the way." Hearing this, Yor asked, "Starting from here, how long will it take for you to reach there?" If it was also a month, then why should she follow him? When she said these words, it actually made the two people startled for a moment, then glancing at Yin Shi, a hint of smile flashed through their eyes. As soon as the little girl said those words, they knew what she meant. He dared to think that if they went together at the same time as she went alone, would she still plan to go alone? The old man smiled and stroked his beard. He looked at Patriarch Gua and asked, "How long did you tell her?" Replying to old ancestor, "I told Cloud 7 that it would take more than a month at the earliest." Patriarch Gua said. The old man nodded and looked at Cloud 7. He smiled and said, 10 days will be enough for me." 10 days? Yor was happy, and with her eyes wide open, she said in pleasant surprise, "Really only 10 days? All right, I'll go with you." 10 days, that would shorten a lot of time. She would be a fool not to go with him. Hearing those words, the old man chuckled. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard his stomach grumbling, and he was taken aback. Hee, my stomach is hungry. You touched her stomach without any trace of uneasiness. I'll get someone to prepare some food. Patriarch was said as he turned around and left. The old man looked at her and asked with a smile, You still haven't abstained from food? I usually eat. Only by eating can I grow up. You were said in deadly earnest. I'll cook for you. Feng Jiu smiled, glanced at her, and said, All right, you can come along too. Mu Chan hesitated for a moment, then looked at his mother and asked, Mother, are you going to send us away after bringing us out for training? Compared to his master's Cloud Sky Mountain, he wanted to stay by his mother's side more. Feng Jiu rubbed his furrowed brows with both hands and said with a smile, Don't frown so much at such a young age. Don't worry, I won't send you back so soon. In a few days, Mother will take you to visit your Uncle Mo Chin. Chapter 49-28. Feng Jiu left her communication jades with Tai Song and Yunyang, asking them to send her a message if someone called Yuan Jing went to the island for medical treatment. The next day, after everything was arranged properly, she took the two children and Songmi out of the island. On the other side, Yu followed the old ancestor of the Guo family in his spaceship. She sat on the edge of the ship and looked at the clouds passing by outside. She blinked and said, How can this ship fly so fast? It's much faster than flying on swords and ordinary magic tools. The old man stroked his beard and narrowed his eyes, saying, Of course it's because my spaceship is not an ordinary magic tool. Otherwise, why would I tell you that we can arrive in about 10 days? Even so, Grandpa Guo, can we go down and rest for a while? Yu lay on the edge of the ship and looked at him with her beautiful eyes. Well, rest? You can rest on this spaceship. He took a look inside the ship. The place was still big. How did you want to rest? Seeing this, Yu sighed with the appearance of a little adult and very vexed said, You don't eat 5 grains, and even the 3 urgent matters are exempted. But what I eat is still 5 grains. I need to go to the bathroom. Hearing this, the old man was stunned. He looked at her up and down and frowned, asking, So you want to go to the bathroom? Why didn't he think that this child had the problem of going to the bathroom? Looks like he's just bringing trouble to me along the way. Yes. Yu nodded quickly. She had been holding it in all the way, but seeing they didn't want to stop and rest, she couldn't help but ask. Seeing this, the old man waved his sleeves, and the flying ship descended and landed in a small forest. He walked around for a while and said to Cloud 7, Go quickly. Don't go too far. Okay, Yu answered. She got out of the spaceship and ran to the place where there were many weeds in the forest. The old man walked around with his hands clasped behind his back and stretched his body. He closed his eyes and listened to the rustling of the leaves in the forest and the chirping of the birds on the branches. He took a deep breath, frowned, and opened his eyes. There was the smell of blood in the air. The smell of blood was blown away by the breeze. He didn't know where it came from. He slowed down and walked in one direction. After walking about 50 meters, he saw Chun Heng's corpse on the ground about 100 meters away. He paused for a moment. He felt that it was best not to be curious about this kind of thing, lest he got into trouble that he should not get into. However, just as he was about to withdraw his gaze and turn around to leave, he felt a divine sense lock onto him. When he felt a divine sense descend upon him, his body stiffened and he immediately retreated. A wisp of vigilance flashed through his eyes. Because just that divine sense alone was enough to make him feel a powerful pressure and killing intent. Swish! Just as he was retreating, a sharp sound cut through the air and attacked Elder Guo at an extremely fast speed. Elder Guo quickly dodged with his instincts and saw the air current shoot into a big tree beside him with a whoosh. Taking a closer look, it was a sleeved arrow that was only as thick as a little finger. It was suffused with a black glow. From the black glow on the tip of the arrow, it could be seen that the arrow was highly toxic. Chapter 49-29. At this moment, old Guo's complexion sunk. The other party suddenly attacked him with killing intent. This was simply a method of silencing him. And he had merely glanced at those corpses, that's all. And that person actually wanted to kill him. This clearly showed how vicious his heart was. Who asked you to have bad luck? Unfortunately, you met this lord here. A gloomy and cold voice came over. The next moment, from approximately 100 meters away, several black figures rushed over with extremely fast speed. Along with this, a murderous aura also rushed over. Old Gua's sleeves turned, and he grasped his wide sleeves in his palm. At the same time, the spiritual aura on his body surged, and at the same time, a powerful airflow gushed out. At the same time, a fist heavily struck towards that figure in front of him. Whoosh! The speed was fast, and the strength was heavy, bringing about a swift and fierce whistling sound. Immediately afterwards, a pung sound was heard as the fist heavily landed on the chest of that black figure. However, at the same time that the black figure let out a muffled groan and was sent flying dozens of meters away, Old Gua also quickly withdrew his hand and let it fall to the side of his body. Fresh blood seeped out from his loosened hand and dripped into the soil on the ground. That person had armor on his chest. Moreover, it was that kind of armor with sharp iron. Kill! A kill order was shouted, and several figures attacked. Carrying a gloomy and cold killing intent, they directly approached Old Gua, intending to take his life in an instant. Old Gua's figure slightly swayed, and the blood dripping from his hand had unknowingly turned into a dark purple color. Even his palm had swollen, suffused with a deadly dark purple color. His lips were also suffused with a layer of dark purple color, and cold sweat seeped out from his forehead. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood from his mouth and rapidly retreated to avoid the attack of those several people. He was fighting with all his might. Merely, the poison flowed along his hand and his chi into his body, making the poison in his body even more profound. At the same time, his fighting speed also gradually weakened, and his dodging figure also slowed down a lot. And precisely because of this, not long after, his body was covered with wounds. Hearing the movement, Yu trotted back, but when she saw the scene in front of her, she was stupefied. She had just gone to relieve herself. But how did Gua family's old ancestor become like this? Seeing one of the black-robed people chopping towards Old Gua with a sword, she was startled and promptly shouted, "Lion, save him!" The moment she spoke, a flash of light shot out and pounced on Old Gua. At the same time, it took him away. Then with a few leaps, it retreated to the spaceship further away and put him down. Pooh! Old Gua spat out a mouthful of blood. Looking at the small figure running forward, his pupils shrank, and he exclaimed in an old voice, "No, run." How could a small child be a match for those people? If she went up, she would be courting death. After the lion put him down, he quickly ran to his little master. At the same time, the silhouettes saw the child who had suddenly jumped out. One of them turned the sword in his hand and attacked the little girl. Facing the incoming killing intent, the little face of Yu was calm and collected. Facing the long sword in the hand of the opposite party, she didn't pull out her dagger. Rather, with a turn of her hand, a whip made a pa sound in the air, and with a shio sound, that whip rolled towards that long sword. Chapter 49:30. The flame burned head-on, and that black-robed man instinctively cried out in alarm. His hand loosened, and the sword in his hand was seized by the long whip. Shio! The long whip threw the sword towards one of the figures who was rushing towards the airship. Shio! A chill came from behind, and that black-robed man instinctively dodged. Just when he dodged sideways, he saw the long sword piercing through the big tree not far away. That person's gloomy and cold eyes narrowed, and looking back, his gaze landed on that little girl who was holding the whip in her hand, and his whole body was covered with dense killing intent. Courting death. With a cold shout, that person turned back and attacked towards that little girl. Roar! Lion roared and pounced towards that black-robed man in front and started to tear and bite. Yu's small body strength naturally couldn't be compared to the other party, but she had the advantage in her wonderful movement technique. Moreover, she also had the ancient divine whip in her hand, which increased her fighting strength by several levels. But even so, those few people besieged her, and she also wasn't their opponent. She was forcefully holding on, but she didn't know that those few black-robed men were shocked and astonished. One must know that along with the battle, they would also attack with their pressure, but this little girl was actually able to withstand their pressure. Moreover, she was nimbly dodging their sword. Needless to say, this didn't surprise them. And at the dark place, that leader who didn't appear narrowed his eyes and stared at the strange whip in the hand of that little girl. His eyes flashed and don't know what he thought, but suddenly he opened his mouth and shouted, "Retreat!" With this order, although those few people didn't understand, but they also quickly retreated to a place where the whip couldn't attack and stopped. Their bloodthirsty eyes were still staring at that little girl who was different from them. This child was very strange. She looked like a 5 or 6 years old little girl. But once the battle started, the aura of her body changed, and her moves were also extremely swift and fierce. Her attacks were specifically aimed at their fatal points. While fighting with them, she didn't panic. Instead, she used killing moves as if she didn't care about her life. They had killed so many people, but this was the first time they encountered such a strange child. Ewer was holding a whip in one hand and a dagger in the other hand. Lion was also guarding beside her. At this moment, one person and one beast vigilantly stared at that person who came out from behind the tree. It was a person whose entire body was hidden in a black cloak. He was also wearing a mask on his face. She couldn't see his face, but she could see that his cold eyes were staring at her. No, to be precise, he was staring at the whip in her hand. Ancient god striking whip. He narrowed his eyes, and there was a trace of surprise in his cold voice. "You are the disciple of Emperor Qing." Yes, Ewer didn't deny, rather directly admitted. Because these people were all very strong, she couldn't win, so she could only use her master's name to save her life. "I heard that the Qing Emperor obtained the ancient holy whip from the Lingmu immortal and gave it to his disciple. I didn't expect that I would encounter it one day," he said with an indescribable expression as he stared at you, and the whip in her hand. The next moment, the corner of his mouth twitched. "Since you are the beloved disciple of Emperor Qing, then so be it, withdraw." He retracted his gaze and turned around. Then raising his cloak, he prepared to leave. "Wait a moment." Ewer promptly called out to stop him. Seeing that person stopped, she said, "Give me the antidote." That old Guo was poisoned. If she didn't have the antidote, then wouldn't he die? Chapter 49:31. Hearing what was said, that masked man sneered. Then turning his head to look at Ewer, he said, "This lord only heard that Qing Emperor had received few disciples, but didn't expect that there was also such an old fellow." "Antidote," Ewer stubbornly said, staring at that little girl. Seeing her eyes were not alarmed and fearless, and instead as if a little beast was staring at him. He pulled up the corner of his mouth. Then throwing a bottle to her, he turned around and left. Seeing their master throwing out the antidote, a touch of surprise flashed through the eyes of several black-robed people. Apparently, they didn't expect that their master would actually give her the antidote. Several figures disappeared extremely quickly. After they left, he secretly sighed in relief, then quickly came to the airship. And at this time, old Guo, who had been holding on until now, seeing you dashing over, finally couldn't hold on and fainted. Ewer opened the bottle and smelled it. In any case, she had studied medicine for a long time, so naturally she could distinguish clearly if it was poison or antidote. Seeing it was indeed antidote, she quickly poured out the antidote from the bottle and stuffed it into old Guo's mouth. Shui, drink some more water," Ewer said, then took out her own water and poured it into his mouth. Although the water poured down, it also drenched old Guo's blood-stained robe. On the other side, several people who followed their master looked at each other. Then one of them bravely asked, "Master, is that little girl really Qing Emperor's disciple? Why didn't we kill her? Even if we kill her and seize that whip in her hand, I reckon no one will know." "What a joke." That masked man walking in front sneered, Then glancing at that person who spoke, he said, "That whip in the hands of that little girl is ancient times God-beating whip. But if it falls into the hands of other people, then that whip, however, would be a sect-exterminating, ominous weapon. What's more, Qing Emperor, that person can give the whip to his disciple. So how could he not have a way to protect his disciple? Do you believe that if we really lay our hands on that little girl, Qing Emperor will certainly appear?" Hearing this, several people were startled, then somewhat hesitantly said, This is impossible, right? Impossible? Humph. That's because you all don't know how terrifying Qing Emperor is. He narrowed his eyes and clenched his fists behind his back. He seemed to have thought of something, and his breathing became heavier. It was precisely because he knew how terrifying the great emperor's strength was that he guessed that she was the Qing Emperor's disciple after recognizing that the whip in the little girl's hand was the holy whip. If he hadn't recognized her at that time and killed her, the Qing Emperor would probably chase him to the ends of the earth to exterminate his entire family. Hearing their master's words, they looked at each other and felt a lingering fear in their hearts. Even their master was so afraid of her. Fortunately, they didn't kill that little girl earlier. In the woods, the complexion of Old Gua, who had taken the antidote, gradually improved. Merely he was still unconscious, and the airship was unable to take him away, so Yor could only wait here for him to wake up. In the evening, Old Gua regained consciousness. He slowly opened his eyes and saw the little girl staring at him with her hands supporting her chin. Her eyes widened in surprise. "You're awake." Master Gua was a little confused and surprised. He had never thought that this little girl would actually be the disciple of Qing Emperor. He still remembered the scene of her looking for that person for the antidote before he lost consciousness. The feeling in his heart was somewhat indescribable. "I didn't expect you to be the disciple of Qing Emperor. If not for you today, I'm afraid this old man would have died here." Chapter 49:32. Now you are injured. Do you want to recuperate for 2 days? Yor tilted her head and asked, "I can recuperate on the spaceship." He looked all around, and knowing that they were still in the forest, he immediately thought, and the spaceship started to fly. Although the sky was getting dark, but the light of Night Pearl on the spaceship was still very clear. Along with the spaceship flying, you also lied on the ground and looked at the dark sky outside. While thinking about those people, she again looked at Old Gua and asked, "Who are those people? Aren't you very powerful? How come you can't defeat them?" Old Gua was half lying on the ground, and hearing her words, he said, "They are people of Kill Alliance. They are an assassin organization, and each of them is extremely powerful. Moreover, this old man also didn't expect that they were wearing soft armor with thorns on their body. After being poisoned by the soft armor, naturally I am not their opponent. Otherwise, even if I am not their opponent, I wouldn't have nearly lost my life in their hands." Finished speaking, he looked at her and said, "Fortunately, you are the disciple of Emperor Qing. Otherwise today, we would have to hand over our lives here." Hearing this, Yor smiled and said, "Didn't expect my master's name is really useful." The two of them chatted until it was late into the night before they stopped to rest. The spaceship flew slowly towards their destination. Several days later, Old Gua and Yor came down from the spaceship. Putting away the small spaceship, Old Gua said, "Not far ahead is the town where my old friend's family is located. Follow me to rest first. If you want to leave, it won't be too late to leave after 1 or 2 days. After all, on the way here, the speed is faster than we expected." Yor thought for a bit, then nodded. "Okay." One big, one small, two people walked toward the town. After entering the town, Old Gua looked at the bustling place and sighed. "I haven't come here for too many years. Didn't expect the change to be so big. Wait a moment, I will ask the way." Finished speaking, he stood beside Yor and waited. Then he went to a small stall and asked. Yor stood on the street and looked all around. The city was unceasingly shouting, and on both sides of the street, there were 3 or 4-story small buildings and shops in great numbers. And on the street, there were all kinds of small stalls. She noticed that there was someone selling cotton candy, and her eyes couldn't help but shone. After that, she quickly walked towards that small stall. "I want a cotton candy." Yura raised her head, and looking at that big cotton candy, her eyes shone. Okay, I'll give you one now, the peddler said with a smile. He held a bamboo stick in his hand and began to roll another cotton candy. As he held the bamboo stick in his hand, it finally took shape. It turned out to be a big white cotton candy. Here, take it. The peddler smiled and handed it to her. He saw the child hand over a silver coin. Just as he was about to give her the change, he heard her wave her hand and say that there was no need for change. Yura was somewhat reluctant to eat the cotton candy in her hand, but looking at that big flower, her eyes narrowed with a smile. While walking, she carefully stuck out her little tongue and lightly licked it. And so delicious! The sweet taste spread on the tip of her tongue, and she happily smiled. However, just when she returned to Olga's place, she heard a burst of noise accompanied by a cry of alarm. Beast startled, beast startled. Quickly get out of the way. Quickly get out of the way. Chapter 49:33. Quickly get out of the way. Quickly get out of the way. Yura was eating her cotton candy, and hearing the sound, she looked towards the direction of the sound and saw a spirit beast carriage had lost control and was crazily running on the street. Yura calmly licked the cotton candy again, and seeing that spirit beast carriage was running over, under the exclamation and pity of those people in the surroundings, her little figure lightly moved towards the railing of the second floor of the restaurant and sat down. That little figure was sitting on the railing of the second floor, and her two legs were still dangling outside. One of her hands was holding a pillar to stabilize her body, and the other hand was holding a cotton candy to eat. At the same time, she was curiously looking at that spirit beast carriage that was crazily running and crashing into a stall, causing the things in that stall to scatter in all directions. The people in the surroundings were stunned looking at that little child who was dangling her pair of short legs on the railing of the second floor. Such a small child. They thought that she would be sent flying, but they didn't expect that this little girl's skill was so agile. At this moment, Olga was startled. Then raising his head to look, he saw that little girl who was sitting on the railing was looking at him with a smile. Can't we eat first? My stomach is hungry, Yura sweetly said, revealing a pure and lovely smile. While eating the cotton candy in her hand, she discovered that even if she was unwilling to eat, the cotton candy was gradually becoming smaller. Seeing this, Olga nodded his head and said with a smile, Okay, you first find a place to sit upstairs. I will go up now. Finished speaking, he walked towards inside the restaurant. During this journey together, he also knew that this child didn't eat even a grain of seclusion pill, but compared to ordinary children, she was indeed more sensible and hardworking. On the journey together, she only ate dry food, pastries, and so on, and she didn't have any objection. Now that she had this condition to enter the restaurant, she should eat a good meal. The chaos on the street still hadn't dispersed, but the city guards quickly rushed over to deal with it. Many people saw that little girl's graceful and nimble movements, so from time to time, they would look towards the second floor of the restaurant. After finished eating the cotton candy, she sat at the table and waited for the dishes to be served. Long before Olga came up, she had already let the waiter order the dishes. You weren't startled just now, right? Olga sat down and asked. No, those two beasts were startled, but they didn't hit me. Yura said. While playing with the teacup on the table, she asked, Grandpa Gua, is your friend's house far from here? It's not that far away. There's no hurry. Now that we're in the city, it won't be too late to go after a meal, Olga said with a smile. He looked down at the street and saw the city guards rushing over. Two spirit beasts that had gone out of control for some reason were killed. Blood splattered all over the ground. He frowned slightly, as if he did not expect the city guards' law enforcement to be so bloody and violent. Those two beasts truly died unjustly. Yura supported her cheek with her hand, and when she turned her head and saw the scene below, she couldn't help but lightly sigh. Oh, Olga was surprised by her words. Just a moment ago, I smelled the herbal smell on their body, which can make beasts go crazy, Yura said while playing with the teacup on the table. Olga didn't ask any more questions. There were some things in the city that they shouldn't meddle in. They should learn to ignore them. Otherwise, they would only bring trouble to themselves. Chapter 49:34. At the same time, the disguised Fengjiu led Mu Chun, Hao and Song Mi into the city. They looked very ordinary and didn't attract any attention as they strolled along the streets. After all, they were wearing the most ordinary clothes, concealing their strength, cultivation, and aura, and changing their appearances. They were so ordinary that they were like passers-by on the street, so no one would pay special attention to them. "Mother, let's rest here tonight. We'll leave tomorrow," Howard whispered as he looked around. When he saw the cotton candy, his eyes flashed. If my sister was here, she would definitely want to eat that cotton candy. At this moment, his sister, Yu, was immersed in the delicious food and simply didn't notice the scene on the street. Therefore, she didn't know that her mother, whom she missed so much, was on the street downstairs at this moment. "This pig trotter is delicious," Yu said vaguely as she picked up a piece of meat and ate it hungrily. Olwa smiled. "Eat slowly, no one will snatch it from you." He then scooped a bowl of soup for her. "Come, drink some soup, don't choke." Yu answered vaguely as she ate the stew on the table. Downstairs, Fengjiu and the others walked along the streets. After looking around, Song Mi said, "Master, there's an inn in front. Let's rest there first." "All right, we'll rest here today and see if there's anything we need to buy." "Buy everything." Fengjiu nodded and went with her to the inn in front. While eating, Yu suddenly felt as if she had heard her mother's voice. She stopped chopsticks and looked all around, but she didn't see her mother's iconic red dress. Adding on to the fact that there were many people on the street, it made Yu wonder if it was her misperception. After all, she didn't see her mother's familiar figure on the streets. "What's wrong?" Olwa asked as he looked at the streets. "Nothing." Yu shook her head, her small face wrinkling. Her originally good appetite was lost because of disappointment. Seeing that she didn't want to say more, Olwa didn't ask and only said, "Then try this, it's not bad." He then picked up some delicious food in her bowl. After walking for a while, Fengjiu suddenly stopped. She felt as if there was a familiar aura around, but when she looked around, she didn't see any familiar people or things. Mu Chun felt her strangeness and looked up to ask, "Mother, what's wrong? There's a familiar aura around here." Fengjiu said softly and looked around, but found nothing. She could only murmur with a smile, "I'm thinking too much." With that said, she led the children to the inn. Not long after Fengjiu and others entered the inn, Old Gua also came out of the inn with Yu and walked towards the direction of his old friend's clan. And the direction they were walking was exactly the opposite direction of Fengjiu and others. He just picked up the teacup and drank it calmly and comfortably. "Ha ha, Brother Gua, I've been waiting for you to come." An old man strode in. Before he arrived, his laughter had already reached their ears. Yu curiously looked over and saw that person was also an old-looking old man, but his aura was very powerful. He was wearing a gray-colored robe, and his simple aura, however, couldn't be ignored. Yu clan's gate is not easy to enter. It wasn't easy for me to come here, but I was almost kicked out. Old Gua didn't move from his seat and was playing with the teacup in his hand. Looking at that old friend who was quickly approaching, he lightly snorted to show his dissatisfaction. Hearing this, Yu clan's ancestor was startled and said in surprise, "There is such a matter? I really didn't know." Saying this, without waiting for him to speak, he turned around and instructed the people behind him with a dark face. Chapter 49:36. Old Brother Gua, I apologize to you here. It's my subordinates who didn't discipline them well. Please don't take offense. He walked forward with a smile and cupped his hands. Looking at the little girl in the hall, he asked in astonishment, "Brother Gua, this is it." Old Gua looked at Cloud 7, thought for a moment, and said, "This is my little friend called Cloud 7. She came together with you and will probably disturb you for 2 days." Hearing this, he was astonished in his heart, but he didn't ask much. He just smiled and said, "So it's like this. Since she is Brother Gua's little friend, then she is also my U residence's guest. Not to mention 1 or 2 days. Even staying for 10 days to half a month is not a problem. Saying this, he smiled and said, Brother Gua, my breakthrough this time is a joyous occasion. I should personally go and invite her, but I have been in seclusion for many years. Every time I go out, my old friends come to visit me, so no matter, the distance between the two places is not close. Going back and forth will take time. It's the same for me to come. Old Gua waved his hand and said, Time flies in the blink of an eye. If it wasn't for Brother Gua, I wouldn't be here today. He sighed with emotion, looking at Old Gua with eyes full of gratitude. Yu looked at them from the side. Both of them were chatting. Listening to their conversation, it seemed that Old Gua had saved him many years ago. This time he was able to advance, so he specially invited him over to congratulate him. After chatting for a while, he said to Old Gua and Cloud 7, You must be tired after a long journey. I will bring you to the courtyard to rest for a while. Thus, both of them followed him to the guest courtyard. On the way, Old Gua asked, How many people did you invite to the banquet? Have the others arrived? I have been in seclusion for so many years, but I only have 1 or 2 old friends. Other than you, there is only Old Man Zong. The others are people from some clans in the city. Old Yu said, After I came out of seclusion, I heard that the current great emperor here is a female emperor called Phoenix Master. Have you heard of this person's origin? Hearing the matter of her mother being mentioned, the eyes of Yu who was following beside her flashed, and she raised her head to look at them. This Empress Phoenix Master is an incredible figure. Elder was said. He looked at him and said, Do you know what happened to the Northern Flame Emperor a while ago? Hearing this, Elder Yu nodded his head, stroked his beard, and said, Yes, I heard that his soul has been extinguished, and this matter is precisely the handiwork of this Empress Phoenix Master. That's right, she's an incredible lord. This matter has shaken the entire upper immortal world. I reckon that the other great emperors have also heard about this matter. They also know about the means and strength of this Empress Phoenix Master. However, no one has made any moves during this period. It can be said that this Empress Phoenix Master's strength is universally acknowledged. Elder Gua praised, and then said with a little regret, It's just that this Empress Phoenix Master is extremely mysterious. I only heard that this person likes to dress in red, and her red clothes flutters in the wind. Moreover, her appearance is extremely beautiful, and her peerless figure and bearing are unforgettable in one's lifetime. Yu smiled with curved eyes. She liked to hear people praise her mother the most. This made her happier than praising her. Chapter 49:37. Okay. Yu answered with a beaming smile. Then looking towards Old Gua, she said, Then I'll go and sleep for a while. Okay. Old Gua nodded his head, and after seeing her enter the courtyard, he followed Old Yu to another courtyard. Both of them entered the courtyard, but Old Yu didn't leave. Instead, he let people serve tea and snacks, then sat down at the table in the courtyard. At this time, there were no outsiders, so Old Yu asked, Why are you calling this Yin Chi little friend? What's her origin? I see that you take care of her very much. Why is that? Hee, her origin is indeed not simple. She was brought to the mansion by the descendants of my family. Hearing that she wanted to come here, and I just happened to want to attend the banquet, so I brought her along. Old Gua smiled and said, Don't look at her young age. Her mentality and calmness when encountering trouble is not comparable to an ordinary child. Hearing his high evaluation of a 5 or 6-year-old child, Old Yu was stunned for a moment, but didn't say anything. Instead, he inquired about his situation in recent years. After drinking tea and sitting for a while in the courtyard, he smiled and stood up. That's fine, you first rest for a while, so that if we continue to chat, you won't even have time to rest. This time, no matter what, you should stay for a few more days so that we can properly gather. Okay, you first go and busy yourself. Old Gua also stood up, preparing to send him out of the hospital. At this time, both of them suddenly heard a loud bang sound coming from the front. Along with that loud sound, there was also a fluctuation of airflow. Hearing the sound, Old Yu looked towards the front, his brows slightly wrinkled, and said to Old Gua, "You rest. I'll go and see what's going on." Finished speaking, he walked out. Old Gua originally wanted to follow him to take a look, but thinking that his strength after advancing was also not low, moreover, Yu family also had many strong people. Even if something really happened, they could also deal with it. Thus, after standing in the courtyard for a while, he turned around and walked toward the side room. At the entrance of Yu family, an old man was sent flying by a palm, and his whole body smashed towards the entrance of Yu family. That strength was so strong that even the entire entrance was smashed to the ground. PFFF. The old man spat out a mouthful of blood, and with a deathly pale complexion, he looked back and saw several people who had chased him all the way. Then he struggled to stand up. Who dares to behave atrociously here? The people in the Yu clan quickly came out after hearing the commotion. When they saw an old man lying on the ground vomiting blood at the smashed door, they couldn't help but be startled. "Who are you?" a middle-aged man shouted. His brows were tightly knitted together as his sharp gaze fell on the few people. There were 4 people, 2 men who looked to be in their 40s or 50s, a woman in her 30s, and an old man in his 60s. The few of them released a strong, killing intent. At this time, their eyes were not looking at the people around them, but the old man who was struggling to stand up. Elder Zhang, the old ancestor of the Yu clan, who had heard the commotion, saw the old man struggling to stand up and could not help but look at him in astonishment. "Why is it you? What's wrong with you?" As she spoke, she quickly stepped forward and came to his side to support him. "Old Yu, I'm really sorry for the trouble I've caused you." Cough, cough. He looked at him apologetically. As soon as he finished speaking, he started coughing, and blood flowed out of his mouth. Chapter 49:38. At this moment, even though he was not dead, he was severely injured and probably could not fight anymore. Even though he knew that he had lured people to the Yu family to put them in danger, but if he did not do so, he would not even have a chance of survival. Humans were selfish. At this moment, he did not even care about diverting the trouble, and only hoped for a chance of survival. When the Yu family patriarch and the Yu family managing elders who followed behind heard that this person was someone the elder ancestor knew, their expressions changed slightly. This person had lured the trouble to their Yu family, and this was putting them in danger. This kind of person only cared about his own life and death, and did not care about the safety of others. To put it bluntly, this kind of person was selfish. Elder ancestor. The middle-aged man stepped forward and called out in a low voice. Seeing that he was still supporting the old man, he said, "Elder ancestor, shouldn't we not interfere in this matter?" Elder Yu's face darkened slightly, as if he did not hear the words behind him. He supported Elder Zhang and looked at the 4 people. His aged voice was low and full of energy. "Who are you people? Why did you use such a fatal move? How did he offend you? Why did you have to kill him?" "I don't know them. I just bought a treasure at the auction when I came here. I wanted to congratulate you on your advancement, but I did not expect to be targeted by these 4 people and chased all the way here." Elder Zhang said weakly. Hearing this, Elder Yu's eyes flashed slightly. After glancing at him, he looked at the 4 people opposite him and said, "Gentlemen, how about giving me some face? If you stop now, we will not pursue this matter further." Elder Yu opened his mouth and said, his gaze falling on the few people, "Give you some face? Who are you? You have a lot of face." A middle-aged man sneered and said, "We will take his life today." As his voice fell, the sharp sword in his hand instantly attacked towards Elder Zhang. "Hold him!" Elder Yu pushed him to the people behind him to support him. With a turn of his palm, a palm wind attacked towards the middle-aged man with a whoosh. Although the middle-aged man's aura was fierce, he was still pushed back by the opponent's palm. His figure retreated a few meters before he managed to stabilize himself. For a moment, the expression on his face changed slightly, and even his eyes darkened. Seeing this, the other 3 people's expressions changed slightly, and their gazes also darkened a little and fell on Elder Yu in unison. Elder Yu cupped his hands towards them and said, "Gentlemen, I don't know where you came from, but today he is a guest that I invited, There is no reason to let a guest die in front of my Yu family's door. Please leave. You are Yu Qingji? The old man stared at Elder Yu with narrowed eyes and asked. Elder Yu's expression, Chengji Elder Yu's face, Chengji's Elder Yu, Elder Yu. Seeing this, he paused for a moment, then looked at him and said, "It's understandable that you're protecting him out of morality. Since this person was invited by you, then I'll give you face and not kill him in front of your Yu clan. However, if you dare to stop us outside your Yu clan's gate, then don't blame us for being impolite. Let's go." The old man shouted in a low voice and turned to leave. At the same time, the three people following him also quickly left, and a visible massacre came to an end. After sending the people in and settling them down, the Yu family elder walked out, looked at the figure waiting outside the courtyard, and walked up. Chapter 49:39. The old ancestor of Yu clan walked with his hands behind his back and came to a tree outside the courtyard. He lightly sighed, "AI, how could I not know? But now that he is seriously injured and has come here by invitation, could it be that we can only watch him die?" He shook his head and said, "I have already sent a message to the people of Zheng clan to let them send someone to pick him up and escort him back." Hearing this, the head of Yu clan loosened his brows and said, "Old ancestor, I feel that his way of doing things today is not too good. This kind of person is not worthy of our Yu clan to take such a big risk to protect. Okay, I know what I'm doing." He waved his hand and left without saying anything else. In the evening, when the sky gradually darkened, a figure quietly sneaked into the Yu clan and came to the side of the well in the backyard of the Yu clan. Unscrewing the cap of the small bottle in his hand, he poured some medicine into the well water. That figure came quietly, and no matter if it was in the open or in the dark, the people of Yu clan did not see him. When Yu woke up, the sky had already darkened. She stretched her body and yawned as she walked out of the courtyard. After asking a servant, she went to the courtyard of Old Gua. "Grandpa Gua?" Yu called out, but did not see anyone coming out. She then asked the servant girl outside the courtyard, "Is he also sleeping? Maybe the door is always locked and I did not see him coming out." As the maidservant spoke, she looked inside and continued, "There's a welcoming banquet prepared in the front yard. The old ancestor has specially prepared this banquet for the two of you. Young miss, please go." "Welcome banquet?" Yu frowned and pouted her little mouth. "I dislike eating a welcome banquet the most. It is very boring." She felt very bored and rolled her eyes. She rolled her eyes and said with a sly smile, "How about this? Since he is still sleeping and has not woken up, you wait for him to wake up and tell him that I went out to stroll around the night market. Tell him not to look for me, and I will be back later." Saying this, Yu did not wait for the servant girl's response. She immediately giggled and skipped towards the front courtyard's gate. Why is the gate broken?" When Yu arrived at the entrance, she saw that the entrance was no longer there. At this moment, it was empty, but there were several guards guarding there. She couldn't help but feel surprised. Something happened today. The main door was smashed. It will take tomorrow to reinstall it. One of the guards recognized her as an important guest of the residence and said, "So that's how it is." Yu nodded her head, but in her heart, she felt strange. Someone actually dared to smash the door of Yu clan? From what old man Yu had said, it seemed that after his advancement, the Yu clan's strength had increased a little. He didn't expect that there would still be someone who dared to smash his door. It seemed that either he wasn't strong enough, or the person who smashed his door was stronger. She shrugged her shoulders. Since it had nothing to do with her, she walked out of the door. When Mother used to take us to the night market, the most we would find was delicious food. Yu said while walking. She was skipping and hopping on the street. Seeing something fun, she would go over to take a look. Seeing something delicious, she would go over buy some. If only Mother and Big Brother were also here. She blinked her eyes, and a longing expression appeared on her little face. But at this time, she didn't know that Feng Jiu was taking the two children and Songmi out of the inn. They were also preparing to stroll around the night market. Chapter 49:40. Okay, Feng replied with a smile. Letting her lead the way, they walked towards the night market of West Street. Feng leisurely walked, looking at her two well-behaved and obedient sons. Her eyes flashed with gentle, doting expression. With a smile on her lips, she said to them, "If you see something you like, just say it. Mother will buy it for you." Hearing this, both of them raised their head and looked towards her. With a smile on their face, they replied, "Okay, thank you, Mother." As a matter of fact, they were also rich. Inside their space, there were many treasures, not to mention money. After all, both of them were boys, so they didn't have much interest in some small things. They just held their mother's hand and walked on the street, looking at this bustling night market. Arriving at the night market of West Street, they found a small stall on the roadside and sat down to eat some things. Meanwhile, Yu also arrived at West Street by herself. She had strolled all the way here and heard that the night market of West Street was the most bustling, so she came here. Alms bowl cake? Is this a pastry? Yu curiously stopped in front of a small stall. She raised her head and looked at that transparent thing inserted in the side, as well as 3 words hanging in front of the stall. "This is a very delicious pastry, little sister. Do you want to buy one to try?" The stall selling alms bowl cake was a youth. Seeing Yu standing in front of him and curiously looking at him, he took out another alms bowl cake and poured it out. Then, using a bamboo stick, he handed it over to Yu. Yu took it and tasted a mouthful. Feeling soft and bouncy, it was very delicious. Her eyes couldn't help but lit up. Then, taking out money, she handed it over to him. "I also want 10 to take away." "Okay." The youth smiled and swiftly packed 10 alms bowl for her. Then, giving her the change, he said, "Come again if you like." Yu answered with a smile. After taking the alms bowl cake, she stored it inside her space. Shortly afterwards, she walked towards the next stall. While eating alms bowl cake, she looked at the things in another stall. "Is this candy? Give me half a gene." While speaking, she again took out money and handed it over. After walking to several stalls, she ate until her stomach was full. She walked to one side and stopped. Then, touching her stomach, she burped. "I'm so full. I can't eat anymore. But what if I still want to eat?" She muttered to herself and looked around. Then, she walked towards the main street. When she saw a place with candy figurines, her eyes lit up. She ran over and shouted, "I want a candy figurine. Make one just like me." Mu Chun, who was eating at the stall, suddenly stopped and looked around as if he was looking for something. "What's wrong?" Feng asked as he looked around. The street was bustling with people coming and going. The shouts and the chatter of the people on the street overlapped. It could be said that it was very chaotic. "I think I heard my sister's voice," Mu Chun said. He didn't know if it was the telepathy of the twins, but he kept feeling that his sister was around. Hearing this, Feng raised his eyebrows and did not say anything. Instead, he released his divine sense and scanned the surroundings. The search of the divine sense was naturally not something that the naked eye could compare to. The divine sense swept past one person after another. Even if there were so many people on the street, it would not miss anyone. Chapter 49-41. That little girl is buying sweets over there. Feng shook his head. Hearing their mother's words, Mu Chun and Hao Er's eyes lit up. They quickly stood up and looked in the direction their mother was looking, but they could not see where Yu was. "Little sister? Master is talking about that little girl?" Mi also quickly stood up and looked left and right, but she could not see anyone. "Over there," Feng said and walked forward. Yu was looking at the peddler who was kneading the sweets. She looked at him with her big eyes and said, "Kneaded according to my appearance. Make it look better. Little sister, little sister." Hao and Mu Chun came over and shouted when they saw her. Yu who was staring at the sweets, was startled when she heard the familiar voice. She turned around and saw 2 figures running over. When she saw the 2 figures, she was stunned for a moment. She was not familiar with their faces, but she was familiar with their figures and the expression in their eyes. She did not need to think to know that they were her 2 brothers in disguise. She couldn't help but smile happily and ran over to them. Big brother, little sister, We finally found you. Are you okay? Did you encounter any danger outside alone? How? Er held her hand and looked at her in front of him, unable to hide the joy in his eyes. Don't you know that we would be worried if you ran around? Mu Chun scolded with a straight face, acting like an older brother. Yer stuck out her little tongue, feeling somewhat guilty and also somewhat guilty. She said, I also miss Mother, so I secretly ran out. But you all don't need to worry. I am very well. I didn't encounter any danger. As he spoke, he asked in a low voice, Is Master angry with me? Is he very angry? Since you were worried that your master would be angry, why did you sneak out? A voice sounded, and Yer widened her eyes in astonishment. She looked at the person slowly walking over. It was obviously not her mother's face, but that voice was her mother's voice. Mother? She called out in astonishment. She couldn't believe it. Feng Jiu walked over and looked at her little face full of astonishment. She was originally worried about her and wanted to scold her, but when she saw this soft little girl, she couldn't bring herself to scold her. Have you suffered? Did you get hurt while you were out there? Did you not eat well? Why did you lose weight? Feng Jiu caressed her daughter's head and pinched her arm. Although she was pinching her soft flesh, she still felt that she had lost weight. Well, Mother, I miss Mother so much. I miss Mother so much. Yer slowly came back to her senses, then threw herself into her mother's bosom and cried. Hearing his youngest daughter's words, Feng Jiu's heart ached, and he felt guilty. All right, don't cry. Be good. She wiped away the tears on her face and said, Do you know that Mother will be worried if you run out alone? If something happened to you, what do you want Mother to do? Mother, I'm sorry. You didn't listen to Mother and Master. She whispered and hung her head because of guilt. Chapter 49-42. When you heard this, she immediately looked at her big brother foolishly. Her big brother's soft knife was much more powerful than her big brother's stern face when he reprimanded her. This was making her vexed for secretly running away. If she didn't take advantage of their absence to secretly run away, she would be able to wait for her mother's arrival on the mountain and leave together with her mother. Thinking of this, she lowered her head sadly and said, I know my mistake. I really know my mistake. In the future, I won't be disobedient anymore. Seeing this, Howard didn't say anything else. He only patted her shoulder and said, Master went out to handle some matters and just happened to meet you here. Before Master returns, we will stay by Mother's side. There are a lot of people here, and it's also noisy. Let's go to the restaurant in front to sit for a while. Mir, who was at the side, said while curiously looking at that little girl. She didn't expect that she would dare to run away alone at such a young age. Truly formidable, worthy of being Master's child. All right, Feng Jiu agreed and brought the children to the restaurant in front. Going to the second floor of the restaurant, they found a relatively quiet place to sit. Feng Jiu then asked, How long have you been here? Where are you staying now? Mother, I came together with Grandpa Gua, so I didn't go on the road alone. Now I'm staying at Grandpa Gua's friend's house. I originally wanted to go and find Mother after 2 days. She promptly said. Hearing this, Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows. Grandpa Gua? Who is he? How did you know him? It's like this, when I let the little fox take me away, there was an accident. She told him about the things that happened after she left that day, as well as how she left Xiao family's place, and the reason why she came here together with Gua family's old ancestor. After listening to her, Feng Jiu nodded his head. So to say, because you met with danger on the road, he knew your identity? You answered, then said again. But he said that he won't tell anyone, because I saved his life. Where is the whip that your master gave you? Feng Jiu asked. Here. You took it out and handed it over to her mother, while saying, Mother, this whip is truly a good thing. It can be used as a whip and can also be used as a sword. Feng Jiu took a look at the whip and nodded. This is indeed a treasure. Your master has treated you well, so I'll let you use this ancient god lashing whip. As she spoke, she smiled and handed the whip to her. Put away. Now, this whip almost represents your identity. Even those who have never seen you before will know that you are the third disciple of Emperor Qing, Cloud 7, as long as they see this whip. They had not seen each other for a long time, and after chatting for a while in a restaurant, you said, "Mother, then I will return to you family and inform Grandpa Gua and the people of you family, lest they worry. All right, let's inform them and come to the inn. We're preparing to leave the city tomorrow. Since we've met you, why don't you come with us? We'll bring you back to the island to take a look," Fengjiu said with a smile. "Master, let me accompany you. In a while, I'll bring her back to the inn to find you," Mir said. Chapter 49-43. With regards to her master not avoiding her and talking about this matter, she was moved in her heart and also secretly remembered to keep this secret. At this moment, regardless of whether it was in front of Yu's grandfather Gua or in front of you family, it was not suitable for her master to show his face, so she could only accompany her master. After all, it was the middle of the night, and only she, this adult, could accompany her master. Only the people of you family and that old man Guo would let her leave this place in the middle of the night. Hearing her words, Fengjiu also didn't refuse, rather nodded his head. "And you accompany her?" After bidding farewell to them, "Return to the inn. We will wait for you to come back." "Okay, you and me," answered. Then both of them left and went downstairs. After they left, Fengjiu also took the two children and went towards the direction of the inn, preparing to go back and wait for them to come back. At this moment, although you family was brightly lit, but it was in a kind of strange silence. You took me, and walked towards you clan, while saying, "It's just in front. Today, I don't know why their main gate is broken. Now they can't close the gate, but there are several guards guarding there." While speaking, they arrived at the main gate, and just when you was preparing to enter, Songmi suddenly vigilantly pulled her, protecting her behind her back. "What's wrong?" Was startled, then raised her head and looked at her. "Something's wrong. There is a smell of blood," Songmi said, then frowning. She said, "There is a problem here." Because of her obstruction, and also because of her reminder, you who was standing at the main gate also smelled the smell of blood in the air, and her complexion couldn't help but slightly changed. Just at this moment, a voice came from behind them. "Since you have seen it, then stay here together." That voice was cold with killing intent, and just after this voice came out, a stream of air attacked them. The two people standing at the main gate had no way to retreat, so they could only hide inside your residence. But just after entering your residence, they sensed that the entire U residence was covered with an enchantment, so that the sound and the stream of air from the fight wouldn't leak out. Therefore, it also wouldn't alarm other people. And all over this residence, those people who should be guarding the main gate were all lying on the ground at this moment, and in the direction of the backyard, there were sounds of fighting and screams. "Be careful," Mir shouted. With a twist of her hand, a frying pan flew out and struck towards the person who was attacking. With a whoosh, the frying pan was flung at that person. As it flew out, it expanded as it spun, and with a bang, it smashed down from above. However, after the attack was blocked, it returned to Songmi-er's hand. "Lion." Yu called out and looked in the direction of the rear courtyard. She said, "Go and take a look at Grandpa Gua." After all, they had been together all the way, and she didn't know what had happened. In short, protecting him was the most important thing. "Roar." The lion roared and dashed towards the backyard. "Divine beast." That middle-aged man who had attacked me narrowed his eyes, then his gloomy and cold gaze fell on Yu, as if he was trying to guess who she was. Such a young child actually had a divine beast accompanying him? In the rear courtyard, the old ancestor of the Yu clan and Old Gua were working together to deal with the three people who were attacking them. Most of the people in the residence were unconscious because they had eaten and drunk water. Only the two of them were still conscious because they were stronger. In addition to the fact that they hadn't eaten anything and had only drunk tea, and because of their great strength, they were able to forcefully endure. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity, through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.